Shadows, the horror movie heroes. By Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 21. Strategy. How had this week gone so wrong so quickly? Electra was supposed to be spending the entire week with Denki and teaching all about hero work. And instead, she was being escorted to a waiting room for the rest of the week while her kid was out there alone, probably terrified and with no idea what to do next. It was about the worst way their bonding activity could have gone, honestly. The clone of ectoplasm that had picked her up opened the door to the waiting room and gave her what was probably supposed to be a reassuring smile, but really came out as more of a grimace. And Electra gave him the same expression before walking inside. The waiting room was fairly large, with a lot of couches, beanbags, and carpets for people to sit on, and there were a couple large doors leading off to what looked like a kitchen and what was probably a sleeping area. And to her surprise, there were already a few people there. A kid with pink hair looked up excitedly and vaulted over the couch toward her. "Hey, hero, villain, or civilian?" Electra frowned. "What?" He gestured around the room. "Welcome to the dead room. It's where they send everyone who gets taken out early. So I was just wondering what your role was." "Here," he held out his hand. "I'm Hiroshi Tameda. I was a civilian." After a moment, she shook his hand. "Electra Kaminari. I was one of the fake villains." Tameda grinned. "Cool. That means we've got the whole set. That shark boy over in the corner is one of the hero students. But, he's not taking the whole death thing well." "Neither am I, honestly." Electra sighed. "My son is still in the exercise. We were supposed to do it together, but..." "You know you can check up on him, right?" Tameda said. "After you die, you get to watch the rest of the exercise just like the teachers do." "Really?" She hurried to follow Tameda as he led her back to the couch. "That's something at least." "Yep." Tameda dropped down on the couch. "It's on a bit of a delay, so you can see how you died. But, here." He handed her a box with a pair of headphones and a remote. Each of the screens has a number, so if you want to hear the audio, just enter the number on the remote. Now that that's out of the way, let's find your kid. He squinted at the wall of screens before grinning and pointing to one of them. "Hey, I found you." Electra looked at the screen he was pointing at and put on her headphones when she realized that she and Denki were walking to the warehouse. They were just talking about nothing, which was heartbreaking when she knew what was about to happen. She saw them rushing inside and then watched as she stupidly left her son and got herself killed. She had to admit that those kids were skilled, but it still stung for a pro hero to be taken out so easily. "Ah, so you got taken out by the shadows too." Tameda nodded. "They've taken out everyone who's died so far." "Those two?" Electra frowned. "Really?" "Yep," Tameda shrugged. "They got me before the heroes even got to the arena. I got killed by the purple one. You got killed by the green one, right?" "Yeah," Electra nodded. "But it's the purple one I'm worried about." "Oh, right, your son." Tameda squinted at the screen. "Well, they look like they're not going to kill him yet. Or maybe they're just leading him away from the fight like they did with the hero. I honestly can't tell what they're going to do next." Electra watched as the shadows lied to her son and told him that the heroes had killed her. Denki trusted them. Of course, he had always been so trusting. It was one of his most admirable qualities. But now she was terrified that he'd lose it. Once he realized that shadows had killed her, well, she'd just have to be there to help him pick up the pieces. It was supposed to be a bonding activity after all. She just hoped it would be a bit more on the positive side, but she'd work with what she had. Shadows led Denki and that other girl to their apartment to get some sleep before day 2, and Electra forced herself to at least try to sleep on one of the beanbags so she'd be alert in the morning. She didn't dare go to the sleeping room yet, not until Denki was actually safe. She couldn't do much for her kid from beyond the grave, but she could watch over him until he died, too. She just knew it wouldn't be enough. Tamaki couldn't think. He could hardly breathe as the panic set in. What do you mean Hanzu's dead? Nejire gasped. We were just with him this morning. How do you know he's dead? Mirio asked. I used my quirk to find his token. Shin grimaced. You know how the teacher said that if we die in the exercise, we're supposed to just leave our token on the ground? Well, we found his token, but Hanzu was nowhere to be seen. Mirio nodded dumbly. Do we know who killed him? Shin shook his head. No idea. There weren't any clues at the scene besides, well, red paint. It didn't look good. According to the rules of the exercise, we basically just found his corpse. Tamaki gulped. We need to do an investigation, don't we? Shin nodded. Everyone's having a meeting right now. You three are the last ones we were waiting on. They silently followed Shin to the waiting room. Even Nejire was quiet, which somehow made Tamaki more nervous than the fact that one of their classmates had just died. When they got to the meeting room, Mirio pushed open the door and Tamaki almost stumbled backwards at the sheer chaos happening inside. It seemed like everyone was yelling at each other and several people were almost coming to blows. What do you mean you don't know what he was doing? He was finding a lost kid. How is that on me? Well, you should have kept track of it better. Beside him, Mirio took a deep breath. Everyone, stop fighting! A shocked silence fell over their class. Look, I'm sure there are a lot of things we could have done differently, but the most important thing right now is to find out who killed Hanzu so that it doesn't happen again. Right, Shindo nodded once. But, not to be a downer, but how do you suggest we do that? There were literally no clues. Mirio thought back to the mysterious kid who had called him earlier. His information had panned out, and he sounded like he had an in with the villains, so he shook his head. He didn't want to put the kid in danger, so he would only use that as a last-ditch option. I don't know, but we're the heroes here. We'll think of something. It felt like Kyoka had just barely gotten to sleep when she felt Shinso shaking her awake. She glared at him, still barely awake, but he just smirked at her and moved on to Kaminari. Kyoka groaned and rubbed the sleep dust from her eyes as she looked for Midoriya, only to somewhat regret it when she found him. He had a marker in his hand and was writing on the walls like some deranged mad scientist, which, from what she knew of him, probably wasn't too far from the truth. She couldn't even decipher half of what was written, but she recognized some of the objectives, and there were lines leading to different places on the wall that had what Kyoka was pretty sure were names. Kaminari sounded just as freaked out as she felt. Dude, what's Midoriya doing? Don't worry about it, Midoriya said quickly, capping the marker. Are you two ready to train? Now? Kaminari shot her a glance. We did just wake up. Shinso shrugged. Maybe, but there's not really a lot of time to waste. We have a lot planned today, and we don't have time to spend the whole time with you two. Hitoshi, don't be rude, Midoriya hissed. But yeah, we don't have a lot of time today, but I really want to experiment with both your quirks first. Kyoka was still exhausted, but didn't really trust him not to shoot her if she didn't agree, so she sighed and stood up. Fine, whatever, let's do this. Wait, we're really just jumping straight into training? Kaminari scrambled to his feet. Like, right now? Yep. Shinso grinned. Got a problem with that? Midoriya didn't wait for them to respond before launching a barrage of questions at Kaminari. Can you direct your electricity? How much can you produce? How much hand-to-hand do you know? Denki's eyes widened like a deer in the headlights, and Shinso put a hand on Midoriya's shoulder. Slow down, Izuku. Give him a chance to answer first. Or better yet, just fight him, and you can see for yourself. Right. Midoriya nodded and ran forward. Good idea. What? Kaminari stumbled backwards and started sparking. Now? Midoriya ducked around him to avoid the electricity, and Shinso smirked. Do you really think villains will wait for you to be ready, Sparky? Oh, okay. Kaminari eyed Izuku suspiciously as he grabbed the marker he had been using earlier. Get ready! Special attack! 1,000,000 volts! Whoa! Midoriya froze midway through throwing a marker. Hitoshi, stop him! Already on it. Even after Kaminari had gone limp under Shinso's hold, the air around them was still charged enough for Kyoka's hair to stand completely on end. Kaminari was really powerful, and she shuddered as she thought about what might have happened if Shinso hadn't been able to stop him in time. Drop your control, Midoriya ordered. Kaminari blinked. What just happened? Shinso gave him a completely done look. I just stopped you from seriously injuring all of us. Okay, I know some of your limits now. Midoriya hurried to grab a notebook. Already? Kaminari stuttered. But I didn't even do anything. Midoriya was so caught up in his thoughts that he didn't even seem to hear him. Okay, so we need to work on quirk control and using small increments of electricity so that you don't have to go straight for the nuclear option. Battle awareness, too, that's going to be important. And also, since we're being villains here, you're going to need to stop calling out your attacks. And he kept talking, and Kyoka sighed. Welcome to the team. End of chapter.